Brexit referendum and India. Brexit referendum was a referendum that took place in June 2016 and it hogged the headlines all over the world. It is because the issue would have an immense impact on the existing world economic order and most of the countries as well, and of course the Britain in particular. There is no doubt India also will have its share of impacts. In this essay, we will try to understand what is this Brexit referendum all about, why was it held, and what are the impacts and repercussions in general and particularly for our country. The Brexit referendum was a referendum to decide whether Britain should leave or remain in the European Union, and this referendum took place in England and the UK public voted in favor of leaving. That is 52% against 48% wanting to remain in the European Union. This essay attempts to give a background, the implications to England, European Union, and also its possible impact on India. Now, what does Brexit mean? Brexit is basically a simplified word that has become used as a shorthand way of saying the UK leaving the European Union. It is coined by merging the words Britain and the exit to get Brexit word. Now the question is why the referendum was held. Prime Minister David Cameron promised to hold this referendum if he won the 2015 general election, and that was in response to growing calls from his own Conservative MPs and the UK Independence Party, who argued that Britain had not had any say since 1975 by remaining in European Union and when it voted to stay in the European Union in a referendum. That was in 1975. The European Union since has changed a lot and it is gaining more control over our daily lives. This is the argument for the referendum proponents. Now, before we go further, let us understand what is the European Union. The European Union, which is commonly known as EU, is an economic and political partnership involving 28 European countries. It began after World War II to foster, that is to encourage economic cooperation, and it was with the idea that countries which trade together are more likely to avoid going to war with each other, and it has since then grown and has become a single market allowing goods and people to move around, and basically as if the member states were one country. The European Union has its own currency, that is the euro, as is well known, and it is used by 19 of the member countries, and it has its own parliament. And it now sets rules in a wide range of areas including the environment, transport, consumer rights, and even things like mobile phone charges. Now the next question is, what is the referendum question? That is, should the United Kingdom remain a member of the European Union or leave the European Union? And who was to vote? That is, British, Irish, and Commonwealth citizens over 18 who were residents in UK along with UK nationals living abroad who have been on the electoral register in the UK in the past 15 years. These were the criteria set for voting for the question of European Union referendum. Now, it is a similar system to that during the other elections as well. Now, question was, who wanted the Britain to leave the European Union? The British public were fairly evenly split according to the latest opinion polls available. Now, Britain has had a troubled relationship with the European Union since the beginning, and it has made various attempts to break away from it. The Leave campaign argued that Britain is losing out a big deal by staying in the European Union, number one. And another argument was the Britain had to pay millions of pounds each week as a contribution to the European Union budget. Now, third was the Britain, it was argued, was facing extremely bureaucratic nature of the European Parliament, and it was hurting British exporters, and possibly most importantly, the unmitigated migration from the European Union into Britain was creating an imbalance in the welfare schemes of the UK government. That was one of the biggest arguments. They also wanted Britain to take back full control of its borders and reduce the number of people coming here to live and work. And also one of the main principles of European Union membership, that is the free movement, which means you don't need to get visa to go and live in another country. And that had become bone of contention. They also objected to the idea of the ever closer union. And what they saw was in fact something like a creation of United States of Europe, as in the United States of America. However, as numerous experts have pointed out, none of this was truly holding water. Britain gained much more than the European Union than it paid for the European Union as contributions. That was despite the alleged bureaucratic hurdles. The British companies had unfettered access to entire European Union, and finally Britain would not be able to shut its doors to immigrants even if it agrees to the European Union, because the trade with the bloc is so huge and it would need to accept some share of outsiders within its borders for its own good. Now, this chart shows the various contributions from the leading European Union countries, and Germany is topping the list with nearly 22%. Then comes the France, and the biggest contributor was of course Britain with nearly 13%. And Italy, Netherlands, Belgium, Sweden, Poland and Spain are other important contributors to the European Union budget. Now let us see who wanted the UK to stay in the European Union. It was Prime Minister David Cameron. The important key figure was the Prime Minister himself, that is Prime Minister David Cameron, who wanted the Britain to stay in the European Union. The Conservative Party, however, pledged itself to be neutral in the campaign. All over the world, even US President Barack Obama wanted Britain to remain in the European Union, and so also the other European Union nations, including France and Germany. The British public seemed pretty evenly split on this issue. Now, the reasons why they wanted the Britain to stay in European Union, those campaigning for Britain to stay in European Union say that it got a big boost from the membership because it made selling things to other European Union countries easier, and they argued the flow of immigrants, most of whom are young and keen to work, fueled, that is, encouraged the economic growth, and it helped pay the public services as well. They also believed the Britain's status in the world would be damaged by leaving, and they were more sure as a part of the 28 nation club rather than going it alone. The big businesses also, with a few exceptions, were in favor of Britain staying in the European Union because it made it easier for them to move money, people and products around the world. The British Chamber of Commerce also backed the idea of staying in the reformed European Union. As regards the question, if the UK left the European Union, whether UK citizens would need a special permit to work in European Union, and what about European Union nationals who wanted to work in the UK? All these questions would depend on the future agreements with the European Union. The impacts of Brexit poll on all over the world in general and the economy of England, Europe, Asia and also India in particular were immediate. The pound price fell down by 10% and it was supposed to be the biggest fall in the last 30 years. The oil price also slumped by more than 6%. Stock prices all over England and even Indian share market fell, indicating a massive implications. And there were similar demands from right-wing parties in France, Italy and Holland to break away from the European Union. This entire episode of Brexit, therefore, is considered as a growing trend of ultra-nationalism and anti-immigration within Europe. Now let us see what is the implication of Brexit on India. Brexit will have wide-ranging repercussions on every country that is remotely connected with the global financial market, which is an obvious fact. It is said that there are 5 ways in which India will be affected because of the Brexit referendum. Now let us see what are they. Number 1 was the uncertainty that followed the Brexit. It was because there was no sound plan regarding the Britain's future relationship with the European Union or any other specific country including India. Now questions were, will they continue to have access to the European markets? Will trade barriers increase if they leave? Are there any agreements with the Union regarding the movement of goods, capital and labor? And these were the important questions that were left unanswered by those advocating for Britain to leave the European Union. And it is precisely the uncertainty over these questions that are spooking the financial markets across the world. Now, markets across the world will tank. That is for sure, because the pound will further depreciate against most major economies. India therefore cannot remain immune to this. Sensex and Nifty, as it was seen, tumbled in the short run. The next aspect was on the investment area. India is presently the second biggest source of FDI, that is foreign direct investment for Great Britain. One of the main reasons for this is the historic and cultural ties with the UK that India shares. Besides, the UK proved to be a gateway into the rest of Europe for the Indian companies, which were setting up their factories in UK, and they could sell their products to the rest of the Europe under the European free market system. However, with the Britain exiting the European Union, it will not be as attractive destination for Indian FDI as before. At the same time, Britain would not want to lose out on the capital coming from India. Thus, one can expect Britain to try extra hard to woo Indian companies to invest there by providing a much bigger incentive in terms of tax breaks, lesser regulation and other financial incentives. Further, Indian companies also can expect a deregulated and much freer market in Britain. The third important impact would be that India will have to look for another EU partner. As said before, with the Britain exiting, India will lose its gateway to Europe. This might force India to forge ties with another country within the European Union, and this would be a good result in the long run. India is already trying to build trade negotiations with many European countries like Netherlands, France, Germany and others, and though it is in a small way. However, for example, Netherlands is India's top FDI destination as of now. This Brexit referendum could force India, therefore, to build a trading relationship with other European Union nations more strongly in order to access the larger European Union market. The fourth aspect is one favorable aspect of the immigration conditions proving to be favorable for India. With the Britain cutting off ties with the European Union, it will be desperate to find a new trading partners and also source of a capital and labor. There have already been many proponents of the Leave campaign that suggest that the UK should look forward to Commonwealth countries to forge new alliances in a much stronger manner. Britain will still need a steady inflow of talented labor, and India fits this bill or the category perfectly, especially also because of English-speaking population. Further, Britain is one of the most important destinations for India who want to study abroad. Presently, British universities are forced to offer subsidized rates for citizens of the UK and the European Union. With Brexit, however, these universities will no longer be obliged to provide a scholarship to European Union citizens. And this will obviously free up the funds. There will be more funds available for students from other countries, including India. Therefore, many more Indians may be able to get scholarships for studying in UK. Another positive aspect that has been talked about for India is the desire of the European Union to develop a much stronger relation with India. With or without Brexit referendum, it would be in the Europe's interest to develop India as a strong trade and strategic partner. Brexit would surely accelerate this process. Europe needs a counterbalance for United States and China geopolitically. It would also need to ensure against a slowing China for its economic interests. For this, Europe would be looking at the fastest growing major economy in the world, that is India, and India would be beneficiary in this context. Thus, even though Britain stands to suffer from leaving the European Union in terms of reduced trade and sustained drop in its GDP, the net effect, however, can turn out to be positive, especially for India.